That was a good workout. Today we're going to talk about medical data, otherwise known as lies, damned lies, and medical data. For 35 years, I've been involved in healthcare and healthcare information technology. During that time, learned an awful lot about the importance of medical data and data points in terms of the management of patients' care and disease process. However, for 35 years, I've also been clinically obese. If you look at the measures across most of my adult life, I have been clinically obese and still am. Technically. And so from that perspective, I wanted to talk a little bit about a story related to my personal healthcare journey. At the age of 54, I decided enough was enough. I needed to do something about my weight. I needed to try and do something to correct the path that I'd been on for all of those years. And it was driven by a relatively selfish thing. My daughter was getting married. I wanted to look better in the photographs. I wanted to feel better. It was going to be in Nicaragua, so the temperature was going to be hot. And I thought, wearing a full kilt outfit in that heat, I wanted to be as comfortable as I could be and be a lot healthier. So I set about a calorie controlled regime and brought my weight down really significantly. I started out at 240 pounds and by the time of the wedding I was 207 pounds. That's a reduction of over 30 pounds, or for my British friends that's more than 2 stone, which I was really pleased with, and it was terrific. However, as soon as the wedding was over, I threw myself back into work because we'd been very busy with the wedding, so I had a lot of stuff to catch up with, and work was quite stressful. There was a lot going on at the company, and my weight went back up. And in fact, I more than erased 50% of those gains. I actually put on 21 pounds between the wedding in July and the holiday period at the end of 2017. So again, I took a long, hard look at myself at my birthday, which is in December, and said, this has got to change. So again, started trying to get back into the regime that I was familiar with in terms of reducing my weight. Threw myself back into that and had a physical in February, which actually I used to try and make sure that everything was okay before I started doing anything too drastic to my input. That came back great. All of the results were great. My blood pressure was in good shape. I had no pre-diabetic markers. My high triglycerides in terms of my lipids and cholesterol were very good. So from that perspective, I went, right, okay, I can actually do this, and embraced it. Started controlling my dietary intake again to reduce the number of calories I was taking in. And then in April, I decided I really wanted to sort of make this a kind of lifestyle change, and that I wanted to go and try and become physically stronger and work out more, just to try and get my body into a better place. And so I signed up with a local gym here in town and started working with a personal trainer. And that has gone tremendously well. I've enjoyed it. It hasn't been without its struggles. You saw me sort of huffing and puffing earlier on. And I intend to continue going there. But I've noted that over that period of time, I've become a lot stronger, and I'm developing muscle because suddenly some of the fat's disappearing. But more importantly, unlike the previous time, I'm actually gaining muscle tissue, and that's terrific. So I went back to the docs in May to have a repeat of some of the bloods to make sure that everything was going well. Predominantly it was, I was checking my vitamin D levels because being as fair skinned as I am, I don't get a lot of sunlight exposure, and so therefore I take vitamin D supplements to try and sort of increase that, and I wanted to check the levels. And he took those bloods, sent them off, and then the alarm bell started sounding. What happened was I got a message through the patient portal on the app on my phone saying, I need you to come in and see me because we need to talk about your blood results. Now, thankfully, I was able to sort of then go and look at what the blood results were. And the things he was concerned about were pretty obvious, because what appeared there was I had out of normal range readings for a number of my liver enzymes, and because of that he'd ordered some additional tests on the same blood samples, which then were to rule out things like hepatitis, viral hepatitis, and suddenly, yeah, that was ruled out. So that was great. I was relieved to see that that result was there, that there was nothing weird going on there. But he was obviously very worried, and I got a message through saying, I'd like you to go and have a liver ultrasound. And I'm like, what, a liver ultrasound? Why do I need a liver ultrasound? And I started becoming quite concerned. So from that, I called up and said, are you sure I really need this? I mean, are the liver enzymes out that much? Yes, no, I would really like you to have this ultrasound. So off I go to the radiology department that is in the office building next door to them. And I have a liver ultrasound. Perfectly, sort of routine sort of procedure, and certainly not invasive or anything to worry about. But I sat there going, right, okay, well, here I am getting the credit card out again to pay for my part of a liver ultrasound. When the results came back, nothing abnormal was discovered in terms of any kind of lesion or any indication of cancer, or certainly nothing related to hepatitis. All the ducts were clear. Excellent sort of result from that perspective. The only thing it noted was I had a fatty liver. Well, if you know anything about anatomy and physiology, that's no surprise for somebody who's been obese for 35 years. They're going to have a lot of abdominal visceral fat, and certainly the liver has been working hard for all those years trying to process that in and out, and so therefore there's a buildup of that in your liver and on from there. But it can be reversed as you start to sort of make the kind of lifestyle changes I was making. But that obviously wasn't enough for the doc. He then came back and said, no, I'd really like you to go and have a FibroScan, which is a specialized type of ultrasound to measure, what the tissue in your liver is like. And at that point, I drew the line. I said, no, listen, I really don't want to incur any more, expense. I don't have any clinical signs and symptoms of liver disease. There's nothing going on. I don't have jaundice. I don't have any pain associated there. There's nothing abnormal with the rest of my digestive system. So, I really don't see the point of incurring more expense and going down this path of additional sort of stuff. But he was still very concerned. And so I started to think, there's got to be a reason that my liver enzymes are off. And so I started to research it myself. And lo and behold, I started to find out that in the literature, and it's not sort of broadly there, but in the literature, there is information out there that says that if you're undertaking strenuous muscular exercise, you end up getting elevated liver enzymes. Suddenly, the penny dropped. And so I went back to the doc and said, you do remember me telling you that the reason for coming for these physicals was I was making lifestyle changes, and you do remember me saying to you when I met that I'm really enjoying working out at the gym. I said, almost everything that is in this article that was used as the basis for testing whether the liver enzymes raised in a normal adult human undertaking these kind of exercises, the types of exercises they're doing is exactly what I'm doing to improve my fitness. High intensity interval training. I'm doing a lot of weight building and bearing and on from there. If you know much about the anatomy and physiology of muscle tissue, as you're starting to do that kind of work and as you're building muscle, the first thing that you have to do when you build muscle is you rip it up. You actually destroy the muscle, which is why you get that aching anytime that you do kind of strenuous exercise. What happens with the debris from that muscle breakdown is it gets passed around your body, and guess where it gets disposed? Out from your liver. Your liver is basically the city dump for your body in terms of processing all this stuff that your body doesn't need anymore, and then sort of disposes of that through the normal ways your body does. But in doing that, it has to work a lot harder. It needs to use a lot more of the chemicals it uses for that process. And so therefore, what this study and several others that I found said is, hey, if you're actually sort of using and burning and building a lot of muscle, then what happens is your liver enzymes go up because your liver's working harder. So the point in all of that I wanted to actually sort of get to was, medical data is vitally important. We use it extensively to try and make decisions and judgments about a patient's care. The challenge is that limited data points do not a diagnosis make. And the problem, when I looked at the results that were coming back from the labs, they were suggesting things like autoimmune hepatitis, because they'd rolled out viral hepatitis, so well, what else could it be? Oh, let's go for that. But when I looked into that, if I really did have autoimmune hepatitis, my liver enzymes wouldn't be just slightly raised from normal, they would be like way off the scale. And the same with a number of other disease processes. So looking at data points in isolation really isn't good enough. Context is everything. The doc had clearly forgotten all about me working out. Either that or he hadn't connected the dots between me doing strenuous muscular exercise and the results that were coming back. And thankfully I passed this paper on to him, and he hasn't quite said thank you, but I hope that he actually sort of read it through. So every patient is different. You have to look at the context as you're going through. In the electronic medical records, just like there was in the lab system results that came back, alerts and clinical roles that are used in there to try and guide care and to try and sort of help the doctor go through a diagnostic process are very, very useful. But they need to have an elegant design and be carefully tested. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of false alerts. It's one of the big things that doctors complain a lot about in terms of electronic medical records is way too many false alerts. And so just like Peter and the wolf and crying wolf too many times, what happens is the doctors start to ignore the alerts. So that's a bad thing. So elegant design and thoughtful testing are really, really important. Finally, the last point I'd make is there's always an exception. There's always going to be a reason why the data doesn't quite add up, and you need to look back at that broader context of things. And I was one example whereby I'm sure that doctor sees an awful lot of people come through with liver disease, maybe early stage, and seeing those kind of symptoms. That was clearly sort of not, something that was relevant to me. So every time that you sort of look for a cohort of patients, there's always going to be an exception. I'm going to keep going with my exercise and keep driving this healthier lifestyle, looking after myself, trying to eat a lot better and sort of keep the progress going on. I hope I'll be able to keep that curve and trajectory sort of headed in the right direction. And it's certainly my ambition that by the end of this year, I'll be at a 34 waist and below 200 pounds. Thanks very much. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Twitter. You can find the details here. Thanks then.